Give us a bit more on what that can do on the European level.
Yes, well, indeed, I could be very short in saying that it's a public-private partnership who's leading on the ATM R&D, but I guess you want to hear a bit more about that. So let me pick up a bit more in detail around the Albatros concept. What we are all aiming at is to reduce the environmental footprint of aviation, and that's extremely complex. On one side, you look at the most efficient trajectory, and it's just not only flying the shortest between the two city pairs. It's emitting less, but as well emitting where, when, and reducing the noise footprint. So it's already a bunch of work that we are concentrating on. And on the other side, once you have enabled this trajectory, that you are able to share it widely to improve the predictability, then you need the airspace around it to be able to fly it. So flying as we planned it. And that's another level of complexity. And the common ground between these two bunch of work, it's multiple actors with a lot of different interests. And that's where we kick in with a joint undertaking. In fact, we are in the university leadership, I heard, and I heard a lot of words like cooperation, collaboration. Well, that's what we do with the GU program, is that we bring together the people around project at the right level of granularity, depending on the maturity of the topic, and we address the key focus area, which are the non-CO2 and the control mitigation, CO2, the noise, leading at the end to solutions that, like Albatros, in fact, that deliver robust and operationally deployable solutions. That's what we do in the CESAR.
Okay. Before we go to Albatros in a second, I mean, we're talking about ATM advancing. No one's talked to me about times. What are we talking about? What's the time zones we're talking? 5, 10 years before you get to 6 to 10%? Any ideas? Who wants to dare? Go ahead.
I say, Chris, that it's right now. I will definitely jump in the Albatros process, presenting you what we are doing now together with the help of CESAR GU, of course, but our partners as well. So basically, Albatros follows an holistic approach. Instead, we are covering all flight phases. We are involving all different stakeholders, such as airlines, our navigation service providers, as well the network manager, the airports, industries, research institutes. So it's a cooperative work. And we are addressing both technological and operational side aspect of the ATM. So we will demonstrate the complementarity of different solutions, from sustainable aviation fuel to enhanced ATM and airspace users operations, both on ground, in the TMA, that basically is the area around the airport, and en route. So among this solution, I just can tell you something, but we will be demonstrating new precision approach. We will be pushing a little bit further the continuous climb operation, the continuous descent operation, exploring a little bit more how we can help SAF, sustainable aviation fuel, to be deployed. But also, as Laurent was saying, we will be put into operation some tools for pilots in order to help them in optimize tactically, for example, the flight trajectory of an aircraft and consume less fuel. Last but not least, for example, we'll be taking a look as well to the famous 4-dimension trajectory-based operation. That was a concept that has been matured in CESAR, in which we decrease drastically the uncertainty around the aircraft trajectory prediction, and therefore we would allow our colleagues, our NSPs, to better control the aircraft in a more efficient way. And as well on the ground, so we said that we would see all flight phases. When we talk about ground, we will be showcasing hybrid semi-robotic towing vehicle that will be allowing to taxi in and taxi out without engine running for our aircraft, which is drastically reducing actually the consumption of our aircraft. So basically, if I can sum up, Chris, what we are looking at, ATM is not looking for a revolution right here, but much more on capitalizing on a bunch of small, quick wins improvement that will deliver the global benefit, and that's the thing it's important.
Thanks. This is for Florian and for you, Laurent. As you just said, this is not, our industry is not considered revolutionary. Sometimes airlines can be quite conservative. When you talk about ATM Florian, for you in particular, when you talk about ATM to the airlines that you deal with, do they embrace it? Are they curious? Are they wary?
Depends what we talk about. I think overall, it's really a matter of value chain. I think this is the understanding we have collectively today. ATM is not the fastest evolving system in the world. However, we do know that we have a common challenge to face in terms of environment. And I think this is where collectively we have to act together. We know as well that it is quite complicated. I mean, the technologies, the procedures, the culture as well of ATM has to evolve so that we can tackle this challenge again together. So that's why, to a large extent, the flights like Albatros are really helping us to progress. It is really showcasing that we can make this happen. We can as well work with our operational staff to support this type of event, and it helps to really create this momentum that we need to progress. I do believe as well that to a large extent we have to rely on this momentum to evolve our own systems, which sometimes are quite outdated and have to be modernized, so that we can take as well benefit of all the new components and all the capabilities that we have on board of modern aircraft. As we know, today is probably a period where we have quite a massive renewal of the fleets across our skies. And it will be really a pity if on the ground system, in terms of the operating environment of aviation, we are not able to benefit really from what modern aircraft can offer today.
Laurent?
Yeah. So Chris, in some terms, you asked me what benefit Air France has in being involved with such an initiative. First of all, I just want to remind you, and you know it really well, that what state or planet is in. As the last IPCC report, le GIEC report, as this IPCC report has shown recently, the state of play of the climate crisis is alarming. And with all my colleagues here, we are really well aware of it, and we are committed to reduce environmental impact of our industry. Why? Because nowadays, aviation is 2.5% of CO2 emission. It could be worse in the future due to traffic increase. We have to move. We are in a critical situation. And so for this reason, Air France has taken a huge engagement to reduce by 50% its CO2 emission by 2030 compared to 2005. Which is fully in line with the ambition of César and all my partners around this table. To be able to reach those targets, we have to act along two time scale, a long term, a short term. Long term, technological breakthrough, new engine, airspace redesign, new airplane. I just want you to remind you that Air France has invested heavily, massively, like Florent said, to renew its fleet. Why? Because nowadays we got already a few Airbus A350. We want to have at the end of 38 aircraft. We are really happy we're going to have our first Airbus A220 this month. And at the end, we will have 60 aircraft. All this, it allows us to 20-25% reduction in CO2 emission. Secondly, a short-term schedule. As Matthias said, we have to act right away. So we have to find quick win to optimize our everyday operation by green operating procedure, by taxing with only a single engine, which is really safe, but you save fuel, it means you decrease your CO2 emission. And Albatros is typically in this part. Just for everybody, because a few of them, you are black belt in Albatros and César. For the others, just to let you know, Albatros is what we called a very large-scale demonstration. It means it looks mature César solution, and we try to implement them in a real condition to evaluate their benefit and their feasibility. That's why Air France, we are really interested to be a partner and to be a part of this consumption for three main reasons. First one, quick win, as I said, because we have to implement right now few solutions. And as we said before, there's continued descent, and it's typically a good example. Secondly, because it's a team effort, and we need that all the key players are involved and engaged in these dynamics. And the third one, because what we need, as I said before, it's an European, a global approach. Why? Because there's no reason it's not useful. Maybe I'm going to give you an example, to make a massive investment of 20 million to get a stringent RNP precision approach on all our medium fleet, and at the end of the day, to be able to perform this kind of approach only in a few locations. So for all these reasons, it's really important for Air France, and we are all working hands in hands with Albatros. I just want to give you this example of Albatros, and to the sizing effect. Air France flies over maybe more than 80 destinations in Europe. My job as a pilot, and it's the same job as all the pilots of the world and in Air France, is to make safety, and it's to optimize our flight to be able to be greener. Greener is a top priority as safety. I give you an example. What happened this morning with this Paris-Toulouse flight is your previous question. We were able to do a continuous descent, what you mentioned, Matthias, which is really good. Why we were able to do this? Because a good coordination with the different airspace, a dynamic management. To give you an idea, if you do on Paris-Charles de Gaulle, main base of Air France, 100% of continuous descent, Air France could save 10,000 tons of fuel, 3,400 hours of flight, which is huge for the environment. You mean? Why? It's really simple. It's because you are at your flying level, you start descending by reducing at the maximum the engine. No worries, it's perfectly safe. But at the end of the day, what happens? It's you avoid level off, which require more power engine, and above all, when you are in a situation with flaps extended, so it means more consumption, and above all, more noise. So if you can avoid this, it's a good deal for everyone. That's why we are involved and we find Albatros a good solution.
Oh, come on, Philippe, Joey. He just told you it's easy. What's going on?
It's easy because...
Don't say thank you.
No, thank you to say that, the customer. It's easy because we have all in our hands to do the jobs nowadays. It's not for tomorrow, it's for today. We can do this improvement today because we can put into practice several key improvements that all ATM stakeholders have identified for improving specific key things in some area of the flight, taxiing, climb, cruise, descent, and back to the gate.
Okay. Good.
Well, the question here, in fact, is the question of the deployment. So certainly we have enough. We will publish this week, by the way, the fourth catalog of the César solution, where we are already more than 100 deployable solutions. So how we going to tackle that is that with the third edition of the César 3, we will have what we call the digital sky demonstrators, which is a bit the follow-up of the very large-scale demonstrator like Albatros, in which once again we will bring everyone, all the partners together and demonstrating in operation that the additionality of a maximum of this solution can contribute directly to the mitigation of the environmental footprint of aviation. So from digital sky demonstrator or VLD like we are doing from Albatros, with Albatros, the objective is that from a trial, this becomes the norm, is that we can do it now, we can use it locally, regionally, and at the network level, and we have enough to do it, so now we have to do it. Let's move.
Florian, as head of the French air navigation services, surely the key message you should be driving home to all the airlines industry is it makes good business sense to invest in this. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Did you hear the question?
Here I am. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, I mean, as head of the French air navigation services, surely you should be driving home a message that it makes good business sense to invest in ATM.
Well, I mean, the airlines are already investing in ATM. I mean, we are getting our revenues from the airlines. And it's clear that from that standpoint, we have to make the best out of it, including in terms of how we invest on such topics. I would just like, from that standpoint, to pick up on what Philippe has just said. It's important that in the months and years to come, we are able to scale up this type of approach. It's very relevant what has been done with Albatros for one flight today, but it's clearly a joint ambition with the airline industry to be able to scale this up in the future so that it becomes the norm and that we don't have to manage this kind of flight somehow independently from the rest of our operations. And from that standpoint, there's still a lot of work to do. I think that this is why we have to continue to invest. And indeed, this is a message as well I want to pass to the entire community. We are going through a very tough crisis, as we all know, in terms of revenues, in terms of difficulties all over the place. But out of it, we have to spare our ability to continue to invest in the future. And I think this is why programs like César are extremely important, because it's a kind of catalyst that we have to not just work together across the stakeholders' value chain, but to be able to get traction in terms of investment. Just to highlight one of the points, which means as well scaling up our system, is that there are areas like the civil military dimensions that we need to work upon in the months to come, in the years to come, to enable this kind of flight to happen. We have a very good cooperation with our military colleagues from that standpoint. But there's obviously a difference to be able to manage that for one flight and then to scale it up for all the flights. And this is really what is ahead of us.
Thank you. We'll be talking tomorrow about the defense side as well, and it's part in this, so we will go into that chapter as well. We're coming to the end of this first half hour, so get your questions ready. What I think comes out for me is that in Europe, between 6 and 10% reduction in fuel burn, if we get this right. You talked about 10,000 tons or something incredible in the future.
In Russia, yes.
If we get the flight right. Mathieu talked about some of the tarmac stuff that can be done to help with the electrification, could also help with the more perfect flight. This is an exciting time. There's a lot coming up. Thank you so much to everyone for taking part in this. So now let's go to questions first in the audience, and you who are watching us on social media around the world, we will come to you as well, don't worry. So please put up your hand if you have a question. Tell us your name and your publication. We've got a few already, that's great.
Good morning, Richard Schuurman, Air Insight. Actually, I have two questions. Can you confirm the flight number of the flight this morning from Paris to Toulouse? Is this AF 7516? I checked you.
It was a 7518 this morning.
Okay. And the second is, Johan Lundgren will confirm is, there have been many airlines for Europe summits where the lack of progress on the single European sky has been discussed. There's a lot of irritation that the politicians are not continuing with this. European Commission has proposed a next step. Are you confident that there will be a real progress now on the single European sky and that your flight this morning will not just be a one-off?
Okay, I've been designed as the volunteer to respond to that. I will not take any opinion on the discussion ongoing now in the trilogue between the Commission, the Council and the Parliament about the proposal of the single sky. I think we all read publicly the position from all the parties, and that will be up to the Commission to come to an agreement for that. Concerning the R&D, the CESAR 3 has been confirmed. Hopefully we will have the signature of the Basic Act around November. So for that there is confirmation that we will be there, and the substantial amount of money that is invested in there, which is more or less equivalent to the ongoing program, just show that we are committed and we will be committed for this program to progress. So yes, Albatros has a future. Yes, the digital sky demonstrator will happen. Now the question is that do we have to wait for the legislative to move forward for us to act? I don't think so. We can act already now, as we just explained it, unless the political work take place. But I cannot take any opinion on where the CES legislation is at the moment and will be in the coming years.
To respond to your question, we are confident. An example, airlines are still really involved and committed with CESAR. To give you an example, Air France, since the really beginning, we are partner and we are working with CESAR, and we want to stay a key partner on this consortium. So it's only because we believe it's going to happen.
Maybe if I can complete, Chris. On my side, what we are talking about are really mature solutions. We're not talking about R&D anymore. We are not just studying the solution anymore. We are targeting to deploy right now. So it's really a next step, I would say, of the CESAR program. We have been passing a lot of years studying different solutions. Now it's the time to deploy. It's not going to be easy, of course, but I think this green pressure is putting us together even more than before. So we are really confident to make it happen.
Go ahead, sir.
Hello, Sebastian Steinke from Flugrevue in Germany. I have a question about the airplanes we need in the future to deal with the future ATM system. It looks like we might get some prop fans, different power sources like hydrogen, airplanes that have different speeds, different maybe habits in the airspace. Is this something that will upset your future ATM system, as we now are facing so much variety of vehicles that cross the airspace in the future? Thank you.
Anybody want to answer this one?
I can maybe start and then you can complement afterwards. In the frame of CESAR, we are studying the impact of what we call new entrants, which means new vehicle, new aircraft flying different speeds, and even unmanned vehicles. This is the merge, in fact, of the current air traffic management that we know today with the unmanned traffic management. So there are a bunch of projects starting and running about this incorporation of the new entrants into the current ATM system. And if I may complement, that's exactly the level of granularity that the program of CESAR is addressing, and just why we do that is by bringing all these technical people, these experts at the same table, that we are able to address this level of complexity, including the aspect that you mentioned.
Thanks, Billy. Over here.
Hi there, Tim Robinson, Aerospace Magazine. Can the panel say something on ATM's role in non-CO2 emissions, contrails, and how quickly we could get rid of the tiny fraction of contrails that contribute to radiative forcing? Thanks.
Philippe, you can answer. Before you do, Florian, you can also jump in at any point if you want to answer, but go ahead, Philippe.
So the non-CO2 topic as well as the contrail mitigation has been addressed already in the CESAR programs in 2013 with the ATM4E, followed by the Fly ATM4E. I think what we need to clearly mention here is that we have to remain absolutely careful on what we do. First of all, because there are major trade-offs when we speak between CO2 and non-CO2, and when we speak about contrail mitigation, the scientific community still has shown major uncertainties. So we have to take care that we would not, in a way that we would deploy rapidly solution that would seem appealing, maybe on the political perspective, where scientifically, and we are all aiming here at delivering robust and genuinely mitigating the environmental impact of aviation. So we have to take care of what we deploy, and on this particular topic, non-CO2 and contrail mitigation, we have to be patient and very careful.
We've got some questions on social media from people watching us around the world. So when we say ATM could reduce 8% of fuel burn, what's the proportion from single aisle to versus wide body in this analysis? Who wants to pick that up? Go on, Laurent, you're the pilot.
Yes, actually, to give you an idea, it's difficult to give you data like this. For which reason? It's a single taxing. You save fuel. For example, this morning, I think we save something like 40 kilos. Okay? You have the feeling it's nothing. On the other hand, it's just an Airbus A320. Driving, taxing for just a couple of minutes. Which is important on this, it's, as I said, the sizing effect. I think on 1 full year, maybe the data I'm going to say are not totally true. Why? Because it depends, it's in a full year, so with a full activity. But it's something like you can say for a normal airline, around 2,500 tons a year. So it's a part of the effort. And which is really interesting on this, it's for the pilot, for the air traffic controller, for the ground staff, we have to be in mind on everyday operation, 100% of the time, to be in a way to optimize our operation. So if you can save 10 kilos, you have to save 10 kilos. It's only in this condition that we will be able to fulfill our ambitious goal over 2030 and above all 2050, and we're going to be able to be a part of the solution to save the planet.
Another question online, this is probably for you. Who would carry the cost of e-taxing?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Who would carry the cost of e-taxing?
De-taxing?
E-taxing, yeah.
So that's another good question. I think that they're picking the good ones. I think it's something that has not been decided yet, and it will be discussed in the coming years, in the coming activities. But basically, we need to make sure that whatever we would like to deploy, it's going to be sustainable for all the stakeholders involved. So whatever the cost will be addressed on, we need to make sure that at the end, everybody is winning. Otherwise, CESAR solution, new technology will never be deployed as such.
Okay, got out of that one. Are there similar initiatives in China or other parts of the world in terms of CESAR or Albatros type things?
China is well involved in also the modernization of their ATM system. They have also the ambition to decarbonize aviation. Their most ambition is also to cope with the air traffic growth. And we are teaming up with China, as Airbus, to help them modernize this ATM and having more digitalized solution. We have put in place with them some trials to test and trial with them the TBO, trajectory-based operation concept in 4 dimensions. That was done in 2019, and we are continuing this cooperation project with them for future deployment of TBO.
And final question online, how much does digitalization contribute to the most efficient flights?
Well, it's very difficult to give numbers. It's a part of it without which we cannot do it. So yes, you can elaborate this famous most efficient trajectory, you can share it. But if you're on the other side, the network and the INSPs are not digitalized and fit enough to accept under heavy traffic this famous trajectory, well, the job is lost. So it's a part of it. We can't give a proportion, but we can't do without it.
Fantastic. Any more questions from the audience here? Last chance on ATM and the quest for a more perfect flight. Okay, well, gentlemen, thank you very much. You were the guinea pigs. You were the first to come up here to talk, and it was great to have you. Thank you, Florian, in Switzerland as well. So thank you to all of you for participating, and thank you for all the questions. There's so much more coming up. And now this is my time to hand over to my colleague, Jennifer.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you very much, gentlemen, for this first ATM panel. A great illustration of just how collectively we need to work together to bring any solution to our decarbonization challenge. It's now time for us to take a break. For those of you watching via our social channels, we'll be showing you some cool video content